and welcome back to part 6, folks. Alrighty, so we've taken care of pretty much everything we can do in Cerulean City, and today all that's left for us to do is actually to go and take on the Gym Leader of Cerulean City and get our second gym badge. Before we start out, like I mentioned last time, I wanted to teach Secret Power to Vanille, and last time I made a bit of a mishap when describing the TM in detail. And I'd like to say that if you want to see what the real effects on based on specific areas of secret power are, you can check the comment section of the previous video where I pinned my own explanation that I divided into specific areas and the effects that the moves have in those areas. But nonetheless, this is the second gym of Kanto and it's a water type gym. So if you've picked Eden, or well, hopefully you haven't picked Eden as well, if you've picked the Bulbasaur as well, you should have a pretty, this should go swimmingly, because I love making amazing jokes, right? I should mention something that I haven't talked about in the first gym. In most generations, and this concept started from the very first games, almost all of the trainers that you can actually see other than the gym leader in any particular gym are usually skippable. Like you see there, there's quite a divided path to get to the gym leader, and you can really make sure that none of these trainers get into your line of sight and actually challenge you to a battle. Now, this Goldeen, even though it's a pure water type, actually knows the move Peck, which is a flying type, and even though it's not stab, for the Goldeen at least, she could definitely give you some trouble, and I'm not particularly over-leveled, at least at this point in the game. I'd like to think that I've divided the experience throughout my team quite well so far, and, I don't particularly enjoy being overpowered when it comes to RPGs in general, so yeah. I think this is pretty good. The little cut there you saw me going into my bag is actually equipping the Pearson Berry that we picked up before Mount Moon. And again, it's a held. It can be used as a held item to prevent confusion, and as you saw, more and more Pokemon are using the move Supersonic, and that confuses you. So yeah, you should put that on your ace Pokemon. I put it on Eden, but as you'll see pretty soon, it doesn't bear any fruits of the labor actually, and that was quite a cool pun if I do say so myself. Probably not though. Both of Misty's Pokemon have the ability Natural Cure, so status conditions aren't necessarily the best idea, but her ace Pokemon Starmie has Rapid Spin, Swift Recover, and Water Pulse, and both of her Pokemon actually know Water Pulse as well, and that's her primary move. And yeah, the passive ability of Water Pulse is to inflict confusion. So even though they don't necessarily have Supersonic, at least all of them, they definitely still can confuse you quite easily. Now, the issue is she's going for Swift against Eden and not Water Pulse, so the Pearson Berry was quite wasted. This is also the first gym battle where the opponents will start using healing items from their bag, even though the Starmie knows Recover, which heals 50% of your HP at any given point in the battle. The gym leaders from now on will start having super potions, and as you progress through the game and the levels and HPs get higher, they'll have hyper potions or full restores as well, which are the best healing items in the entire game. But with a few secret powers, this is nothing that Vanille can handle, especially looking at how bulky she is now with a really decent attack stat, plus stab. And with that we have the Cascade badge. Like the old man told us in one of the houses in Cerulean City, all Pokemon up to level 30 will now obey us, and we can use the hidden move Cut outside of battle. So when we actually find it somewhere in the overworld and teach it to someone, we'll be able to get through all those pesky cuttable trees, as the game puts it, which is pretty neat. Looking at our profile or our little trainer card, we can see the 2 badges now. And yeah, that's pretty dope. But While healing up, I decided that I want to make another entry in the Pokédex that's quite free because I don't plan on selling my moonstones or throwing it away. So yeah, just go into your PC, and if you have caught a Clefairy or, you know, Nidoran, male or female, that you've evolved to their first stage, you can use your moonstone on any of those to complete another page in the Pokédex. I should mention that from now on, any Pokemon that I actually evolve using this method, I will mention, of course, in commentary, but it will usually be done off screen, because unless I'm planning to use a Pokemon in my party, I don't think that it's necessary that I show off their evolutions outside of just talking to them. But anyway, on our way out of Cerulean, because this is the only way out, let's take care of that robbery that took place last time. And yeah, let's fight this Rocket member. Looks like they pretty much destroyed the house of those poor people and stole the TM for Dig, which is a ground type move. Not necessarily something that's gonna give us stab on any of our team members, but will give us very good type coverage, as ground is really good against electric types, as I'm sure you're aware. And yeah, Spectre's gonna be very strong after that. I decided to show this battle off just because I suppose it's kind of story related. And not to mention, we see a new Pokemon here. We have one of our first Psychic types that we've encountered, other than Abra, who was, you know, pretty much absolutely useless, only knowing Teleport. But this is Drowsy. And, yeah, even though we can find Drowsies in the wild pretty soon, and they do have nice special attack stats later on, but they're just way too slow, and the bulkiness that they have over the Abra evolution line, or family I guess, is not beneficial enough that I would recommend using a Drowsy over an Abra, unless you're just, you know, trying to use a different team and trying to have fun. Like I mentioned, I think I'll go ahead and teach Dig the Spectre. I said last time that I chose to keep Leer on my party in case something, you know, is very bulky and we just need to take it out in 1 or 2 shots, with Spectre, our strongest attacker, and our speediest one too. But at this point in the game we'll encounter more and more electric types who are very pesky, and because of that I'll actually just rather have Dig. Dig is also a first 2-turn move that we've seen, which is pretty neat, but you'll see it in use soon enough. Welcome to Route 5, by the way. This is a new area of the game, and on this route you can find Pidgeys, Oddishes in FireRed, Bellsprouts in LeafGreen, and one new Pokemon, Meowth. Now Meowth is actually a pretty cool Pokemon to have. Even if you don't plan using a normal type, in general, or you already have one on your team like we do, Meowth is a really cool species because it has the potential to have an ability called Pickup, which means that you don't necessarily have to battle with Meowth directly. But if you keep Meowth in your party, and, you know, as you battle, you check progressively after each one in your inventory whether he has a held item now or not. And after each battle there's a small percentage chance that he will acquire a held item, and it can be really, you know, good items as well. Sometimes, you know, well, most of the times it's Pokeballs or Ethers or berries, but sometimes it can be Hyper Potions, rare candies especially. So yeah, you definitely want to check that out. We can't leave south to Saffron because the road is closed and garden duty is thirsty, I guess. And other than that, we've also visited the Pokemon daycare. So I've left my Magikarp in there that I caught, and sometime later on in the adventure I'll actually come back there and let's see how much our Magikarp has grown. Because I don't necessarily plan on using a Magikarp, spoiler alert, but yeah, I definitely don't want to train or fish for its evolution later on, because they're quite rare to find. Here on Route 6, there's no new Pokemon. In fact, they're all the same as Route 5, so at least you don't have to do any more catching to complete your Pokédex side quest. The underground path we just took actually has a lot of hidden items in it, and much like Mount Moon, now that my suspicions are true, you can't actually find them before you have the item called Item Finder. And because of that, when we do pick it up, we'll return to the underground path and we'll find plethora of items that we can actually find there that are hidden, because apparently people drop them in the darkness of the underground path. And we'll again be returning to Mount Moon to pick up all the tiny and big mushrooms that we can find on the lower basement floors. That said though, that little girl that wanted to trade a female for a male Nidoran, well, for one, it's a way to catch a male Nidoran in this game without actually trying to find it 1% of the time back on Route 3, was it, I believe? But other than that, the male Nidoran that you get through that trade is actually also holding a tiny mushroom. So again, if you haven't gone back and picked them up from Mount Moon, if you already have the item finder, or you haven't caught a whole bunch of Parises, you can actually do this trade for free and potentially fill up another page in your Pokédex, as well as get one tiny mushroom, which is pretty cool. I find it pretty cool that one of those Pokemon, I always forget the name, it's not Scout, it's not Ranger, oh, it's actually Picnicker. I remembered without making an edit in the commentary. He had a Squirtle, and you don't usually see that unless you're battling a rival or a story-intensive character, I suppose. You don't usually see starters from regular trainers, so I decided to keep it in. This trainer, however, is known as one of the most annoying regular trainers in the beginning of the game, because he has a level 20 Butterfree, and it's our first time seeing the full evolution of a Caterpie. Now, what he'll do is actually just spam different status inflictions on your party, like Supersonic for confusion. He also has Stun Spore and Poison Powder, so he's really annoying. Thankfully though, we have Rollout, and that's 4 times super effective against the Bug and Flying type. So thankfully we're all in the clear, and with a little bit of luck breaking through Para Fusion, as they like to call it in the competitive scene, where you're both confused and paralyzed, which, you know, stacks. We're able to hit the second rollout as well, which is even more powerful than the first one, as a cool little passive ability of the move rollout. And take out the Butterfree, which is quite nice. And this trainer, because soon we'll gain the ability to rematch some trainers, keep in mind that this one especially, you know, his Butterfree, given that it's stage 2 evolution and quite high leveled, it gives out a lot of XP, especially when rematched. Other than that, we don't really have anything new to see, other than this Eradicate, which I believe is the first time we're seeing Eradicate. I don't know, I've been doing so much editing lately that they've all kind of blended together for me. But yeah, Eradicates are evolved forms of Rattatas, and again, they seem like pushovers, but if you actually want to use a Rattata or Eradicate, it's not that bad at all, as just a regular, normal type attacker. It's pretty neat, and again, Rattata specifically can learn so many HM moves, so having one in your party regardless is very useful too. Okay, after we've healed up, let's talk to this Ace Trainer, I believe. I think that's the overworld sprite for an Ace Trainer. And we get this item, actually a key item called the Versus Seeker. It gives us the ability to rematch some specific trainers in the wild. And it's actually very useful for level grinding. So if you want to get your levels up fast, you find the trainers that have the Pokemon that give out the most XP, logically. And with that, you can just rematch them over and over again with the Pokemon you wanna train up. And yeah, it's pretty useful. In the house next door, we can get an old rod. This is the first fishing rod in a series of 3 that allows us to fish. You just step out near any body of water, like we can here. Sadly though, with the old rod, you can only really fish for Magikarp, so it's not particularly useful. About the Versus Seeker, I think I should also mention that it works based on your battery life. I mean, Alright, so they call it battery life, and it needs to recharge technically, but all that means is you have to walk a certain amount of steps before you can choose to rematch new trainers again. You can't just battle them and then press the item again and then spam it that way. So yeah, you'll need to run a bit, but the Versus Seeker is still a great item for level grinding. This is a trade, and I really like how trades in game look exactly the same as the trades you do when trading with your friends or a different game cartridge, whatever. Again, much like the Clefairy evolution, this is gonna probably be my first and only on-screen trade that I show off, because nothing really changes. And in this trade, you can get a Farfetch'd, and it's the only Farfetch'd you can get in the game, so make sure you do that. It's actually a really cool Pokemon. It also holds its item called the Stick, and yeah, it's an item that's specifically designed for Farfetch'd, so you don't want to take it off him. But it can learn really cool moves like False Swipe, which are incredibly useful for catching wild Pokemon. And yeah, I've definitely used the Farfetch'd before in my runs, and I've definitely considered it, but I had something different in mind for my party when it comes to flying types in this playthrough. Anyway, now that we've done with that, yeah, this is Vermilion City. This is also the location of the third gym already, but as you can tell, it's behind one of those cuttable trees and the land of water, Jesus, body of water. And yeah, those are two different HM moves that we need to do to actually gain access to the gym, and we know neither, so I guess we can't take on the gym just yet. Jeez. But yeah, when it comes to the Versus Seeker, all you really have to do is stand next to a certain bunch of trainers. I by now know which trainers are very good to rematch. And when you do that, see the exclamation points, meaning that that trainer's up for another battle, and you just talk to them again. Now, they usually just have the same Pokemon, at least the first time you rematch them, with a few levels higher. So, for example, the Squirtle that was level 20 is now level 22. And with that battle, I'm actually very happy that I did show it off, or that I showed off the Versus Seeker, because Eden finally learned an upgrade for Wine Whip. Now we have a Razor Leaf, a stronger move that also has a high percentage chance of gaining critical hits. It's great. But along the way in Vermilion, we picked up a bike voucher from the president of the Pokemon Trainer Club. And real quick, I made a transition there to go back to Cerulean, and now you can actually pick up a bicycle. One of the routes on this game is actually called the Cycling Road, where you need a bicycle, but other than that, it's kind of like running shoes, where, well, it just makes you go faster. And yeah, I don't really prefer it. I like running, personally. This little cave area here actually connects Pewter City with Vermilion. And we won't backtrack just yet all the way back to Pewter, but we will soon when we're done with everything we can do here. However, like its name states, this is the Diglett's Cave, and in here you can find Diglets and their evolved forms Duck Trio. I'll actually only be catching a Diglett because, well, if I wanted the Duck Trio, we can just evolve the Diglett, right? And Duck Trios at this point in the game are very annoying to catch, because they come at levels from 29 to 31, I believe, which is extremely high, but they're also really rare. Which means that if you do want to catch them, you need to use repels to repel all the low-level Diglets from appearing, and then you need actually some very strong Pokeballs, and we only have regular ones. So, yeah, it's unfortunate, but I wasted like 5 to 8 repels, I believe, trying to find a Duck Trio, and I wasted most of my Pokeballs too, failing to catch one. So I just decided, you know what, if it's important enough, I'll either come back later on, or I'll just level grind the Diglett with XP share that we will get eventually too in the game. So I'm not, you know, clawing to get that Duck Trio right now. On the route eastern to the Diglett's Cave, there's one new Pokemon we can find, like you saw, and it's a Drowsy. So yeah, those ones at least aren't like, or unlike the Trios, are actually very easy to catch. so you probably shouldn't have any more trouble. There's a bunch of trainers on Route 11, and yeah, it's some very good XP. Even though we can't technically progress anymore to the east, it's a very useful route, and you'll see pretty soon why. There's also a lot of new Pokemon that we can see here from all the trainers that we've never been able to see from others or in the wild, so it's actually pretty neat. When I talked about trades and evolutions using moonstones and what have you to complete the Pokédex, like I said, it's gonna be pretty much done off screen, and for some Pokemon I'll level them up too, just to make sure they evolve, and I don't want to show that off necessarily, so again, it's pretty much just going to be done off screen. With that, I think it's fair to mention again that I will talk about it, so you're not gonna miss out on anything. And yeah, with that, we've defeated this gambler too. Actually, one of the gamblers introduces himself as the rambling gaming dude, and that's something that they actually changed in the remakes. Usually, again, he said, "I'm a rambling gambling dude" in the originals, but as Pokemon as a game series and franchise progressed through the years, they really tried to get away from all the, I suppose, negative influences like smoking or gambling from their games. One of the, I guess, worst offenders of that, for me at least, it's that they've changed the gambling center in Goldenrod City in the future remakes, and they made it into this weird not domino, but memory type game with Voltorbs that I didn't really enjoy at all. Actually, now that I think about it, it's more like Minesweeper if I remember correctly. It's been a while since I played that game for fun. But yeah, they really went away with a lot of gambling notions in the games, which I think it's really interesting when we make that juxtaposition with the fact that most games encourage gambling nowadays with their microtransaction systems and their loot box options. So, yeah, I guess that's some food for thought. Here we actually see the evolved form of Magnemite, Magneton, and yeah, I make a horrible mistake actually going for Poison Powder, forgetting that it's not affected to Steel types. But something that I should note that you should be careful of, a lot of these Magnemites and Magnetons that you'll encounter from now on in the game will know the move Sonic Boom, yeah, not Supersonic, jeez. And that always does 20 HP to your opponents, so if you're not thoughtful enough to have team members with a lot of HP by now, you might struggle fighting electric types from now on, because Sonic Boom against Pokemon like Spectre or other, strong fast sweepers that you might have picked up because you're just trying to power through everybody, they're not gonna have a fun time battling moves like Sonic Boom. There's also other moves like that are similar, like Nightshade, but they're not all exactly one and the same. My personal opinions on moves like Nightshade, what's another one I can't think of right now, Dragon Rage, Sonic Boom, I don't know, they really just kill challenge runs off when you're trying to play a Nuzlocke or something like that, not necessarily something that actually impacts the game in a fun way, because at later levels it's meaningless. You don't care if somebody always does 20 when you're in your levels 40 or 50s, This trainer, however, has two cool Pokemon. He's much like all the other trainers that have two different exclusives. He has a Growlithe and a Vulpix, the fire type pairing that's actually exclusive to both games. If you're playing FireRed, you can find the Growlithe in the wild much later on in the game, and for LeafGreen we have the options to pick up the Vulpix. Arcanine is probably the strongest fire type in the game, and I would strongly recommend it, even though again it's mostly a physical attacker. His base stats are actually quite evenly split, so it can be used in the special department as well. And considering that fire overall is a special type move, because again, this generation doesn't have the physical special split like future generations do, because remember, it's an old game. We actually you know, very much could use an Arcanine. But again, you've heard me explain my theories behind my party so far plenty of times. This is the first encounter of an aide of Professor Oak's who he's sent somewhere to give us an item. And he requires 30 Pokemon to actually find and register, which means catch or evolve, to give you the item finder that I talked about earlier when we went through the underground path. And I decided to quickly use the Versus Seeker and evolve my Metapod and Kakuna, because they only evolve at level 10 into their final stage evolution, because we had 28 Pokemon in our Pokédex. And with that, we've gotten to 30, and when you come back, speaking to that professor's aide, you can pick up the item finder, actually one of the most useful items. But with that, we've actually done a lot. We've gotten the Cascade badge from Misty, we've explored Vermilion City, got a whole bunch of new useful items, and as I'm rummaging through the darkness of the underground path, next time we'll visit the luxury cruiser that Bill invited us to, and possibly take on the third gym already. See you guys then.